what path led you to be interested and start up your practice, the spiritual psychiatry?
Yeah, brother. Well, my path has been one of, I guess it's from the moment I was born. I was born into a very spiritually minded mother who had a very intimate relationship with Ascended Master Jesus. I chose that sacred womb, and all she did while she was pregnant was study the Bible, pray to Jesus, and there's certain spiritual beliefs that say the soul and the spirit guides are able to kind of choose the womb, which you're born into in preparation for kind of your journey and your mission and the burning of karma, as well as kind of coming to help. And so it really started there as my mom was studying for a nursing exam, and all she was doing was praying, reading the Bible. And so I chose that womb, and she was married to a Seventh-day Adventist pastor.
Okay.
And so my father's a Korean, he immigrated from Korea, and he's a minister. And so I was born into that family, and in that family, my mom had a very sincere, devout kind of relationship with Jesus. And so through that, I kind of developed into the church, where I had this moment in my 11th grade where I had this conversion experience where I really, really felt kind of unconditional love in my heart on a mission trip in Honduras. And once there, everything changed and everything switched, and I'm kind of all in or not.
Yeah.
So I went all in into church, and for me, it was very real. My heart was on fire. I would stay up late at night writing love songs to Jesus, and it just everything became about that. Quit the basketball team just to focus on church. And right around kind of junior year in college is when I started realizing, looking around at the church, and started realizing kind of, okay, well, what's going on? Because this fire, I felt it before, but I don't really see that all around me. And that fire kind of started dwindling in my heart. And at that time, I was very naive, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to go explore. I made a deal with God. I said, God, listen, I don't know how to get that fire back. I'm lukewarm, and you said you'd rather have me be cold than lukewarm, and I had not explored anything about the world at that time. And not only that, I was starting to notice the man-made religious rules and religion, and some of it was not resonating with me. And so
that's what Jesus did, right?
Yeah.
He saw all those rules. He's like, oh man, this is not right.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes. The only people he ever criticized when he was on planet Earth was really the church leaders at that time, for those man-made rules, which were missing the point.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went on to a full-on exploration of all things related to the world. Really tried everything, quote unquote, in the world. And at the end of that journey, I had kind of wandered far from my spirituality, from my higher self, from love, and trying to fill that void in my heart, which we all have, with outside external things, which never works. And I had to go through kind of the dark night of the soul several times, and finally hit rock bottom on a failed engagement, and called off the wedding in a manic rage. And my whole process has been, through this whole journey, I've literally experienced almost every single psychiatric diagnosis, and could have been labeled with schizophrenia, PTSD, bipolar disorder, major depression, addictive personality disorders, severe social anxiety disorder, general anxiety disorder. Pretty much all of them in the book I could have been labeled with at one time. And this led me back to a deep, deep exploration once I hit rock bottom of all things related to consciousness, all things related to spirit, which led me on a very deeply healing personal journey. And by the grace of God, by the grace of the universe, I was able to graduate and finish, medical school and residency. And through this journey, there just came a point where that voice inside, I was working at Kaiser, and very comfortable job. I felt like I was helping people, but the voice inside said, "Today's the day you quit." And I put in my 2 weeks there. I had no plan what I was going to do. So since then, since then I've just been breathing every morning and listening to that quiet voice inside, and trying to, when the mind is quiet, the heart will speak, and trying to follow that voice. And it finally led me to the point where it's like, it's time to share your journey, share what you've been through, and how you integrated yourself back into the knowingness, and connected with your higher self again, of wholeness, beyond the label, beyond the diagnosis. And psychedelic plant medicines were a part of that journey, definitely.
Okay, well, I'm interested to dig a little deeper into some of the psychiatric experiences you've had, and then how in your studies, how you would then translate them from your spiritual perspective, under the understanding of prana and chakras, and even historically, there's a precedent for this type of initiation in native cultures. It's the birth of a shaman or birth of a healer would generally be precipitated by some sort of psychiatric or psycho-spiritual crises.
Most definitely, yeah. Yeah, and it's, really all psychiatric diagnosis or labels, from a shamanic point of view, is the invisible world, is really like 99% of reality. But we concentrate on material, kind of the 1% that we see, and we think that that's actually what's real, but it's actually the unseen world that controls the seen world. So unseen belief systems, produce unseen thought forms, unseen mental attitudes, which produce, unseen belief systems and unseen, so all of that is unseen. And then which becomes thoughts, which become emotions. And these emotions are emotional frequencies which carry information to every single cell in our body. And once it's like and our cells have microtubules, which like our antennas, which receive these signals. And so when someone is chronically experiencing the thought belief that I am depressed, there's something wrong with me, I don't fit into society, then these belief systems start producing these type of vibrations and these emotions, low vibration emotions such as guilt and shame, which are constantly experienced, start resonating into the cells and sending messages to the cells, which start coding for proteins and hormones and genes, and that are corresponding to these belief systems and these emotions, these emotional frequencies. And the emotions are the key to the astral world. And so when we're constantly vibrating these emotions, we start feeling separate. We start feeling there's something wrong with us. It leads to fear, which leads to separation, which leads to isolation, which leads to inflammation, which leads to disease. And so in the Western world, and, we're meant to be in loving connection as human beings. And so when we start isolating, we lose hope and all sense of purpose. But really, these depressive episodes are a result of not following our GPS system, our heart center, and instead listening to kind of the program conditioned mind, the analytical mind, which science has gone toward. And, modern psychiatry, unfortunately, in the Western world, took away the concept of a soul. And just kind of started looking at the body as like a table where you can fix things by changing serotonin or fix things by changing dopamine. And when you take away the concept of the soul, then it really just becomes like we're physical matter, and that's not necessarily true. And what we realize and understand is in those dark nights of the soul, it's a transition state in consciousness where we are becoming aware. Because if we were always just in our comfort zone, nothing would ever change. But really what the spirit world is concerned about, not necessarily is our comfort, but the evolution of our soul, the evolution of our consciousness. And so when, it will sometimes allow us through our own choices, through our own free will, to come to a point where we enter into the dark night of the soul and we realize, the things that have not been serving us, the people that have not been serving us, the programs that have not been serving us, the belief systems that have not been serving us. And it's only in that dark night where we can start unplugging from these belief systems, unplugging from the things external to us that we were trying to fill that void with, and start from that darkness, from that unknown place, start plugging in again into the systems, the belief systems, the energy, and connecting with our higher selves again, so that we can, at the end of this dark night of the soul, come out in a higher level of consciousness. And shamanic cultures knew this. And so, when a child from the ages of 16 to 22, starts experiencing symptoms of schizophrenia and hearing voices, well, it's just frequency. If you want to understand the universe, you got to understand frequency. When we're vibrating at guilt, shame, and fear, we're going to attract the same, in the shamanic world, they call it entities. If you want to call it energy, frequency, whatever you want to call it, but the same like attract like. And so these type of entities start coming through as voices or coming through as, whatever it may be. And, the shaman in a third world country, some of these countries, they understand and realize what's going through because they've been through it.
Right.
And so instead of the community looking at this child as an outcast, if they are able to have a shaman who sees that this child actually has a gift and is able to take him under his wing or her under his wing and mentor them through it and teach them and not outcast them. And the community also sees that this child, instead of seeing him as an outcast, has a gift, and they're able to nurture this child, hold space for this child. This child will go through a process where they will eventually be able to learn how to work with the unseen world and come through it and become the local town shaman or healer.
Yeah.
And so there's different ways of looking at kind of mental illness. And the way that I've kind of, in my experience, come to look at it is everything is a lesson, a blessing, and an opportunity. And every single time I've been through a psychiatric condition, I've always come out. If I don't give up, I keep holding on, keep, connecting with higher vibrations. I come out of it with a higher level of consciousness.
Yeah, it seems as if those are the lessons you've learned, so you understand that territory, and now you're set yourself up in a position to help people navigate that territory, which is beautiful because that's what's necessary. I think a lot of people are realizing that this focus on materialism is damaging not only to the individual but to communities, and everything is economic or it doesn't matter, and it's just kind of a system that I think a lot of people are starting to question, and we're seeing certain things unraveling. And I think that perhaps through this process we're going to see more people entering into these discordant states as their worldview collides with the needs of their soul.
Oh, that's very wise. Yeah, that's a very wise statement. Yeah, I fully agree with you. And the word that comes to mind is called emergence. We are one human conscious collective. God is consciousness, and we are individualized consciousness. And the internet has really, changed the world, because now if people are really hungry for truth, they can really start using their intuition and searching for truth.
Yeah.
And ancient wisdom, which used to be hidden from the common people, is now available. And so more and more people are starting to search for the truth. And what's happening is eventually they'll reach a tipping point in human consciousness, and it's starting to happen, where certain belief systems will start falling apart because not those people who used to believe in it don't believe in it. The people who all used to eat McDonald's are no longer eating at McDonald's.
Right.
And so little by little by little, what we call emergence starts happening, where these old belief systems, these old structures, which used to be supported by the human conscious collective, slowly start falling away, and new belief systems try in alignment with the human conscious collective and what we believe start emerging. So more and more people are going into veganism, more and more people are going into Kundalini yoga. And, just even one example is my mother, who about, 5 years ago when I started yoga, was telling me, the old Christian paradigm of yoga, oh, be careful of that, there's so much, there used to be the stigma of yogis and Christians where there was a separation there. But now even my mother is telling me, oh, I heard yoga is really good for you. And I was like, Mom, if you only heard yourself 5 years ago. So all these old belief systems are starting to fall away, and, consciousness is rising, and it's a beautiful, exciting time to be alive.
Yeah, like you, I'm hopeful about what's going on. I think these spiritual crises can happen to the individual and to societies. And you can look at history and see that there have been times where you could label a society as somewhat psychotic, or I don't know how you diagnose American society right now, but it's got to have something going on. Go ahead.
No, that's an amazing statement, because, the Psychiatrist's Bible, DSM-5, Diagnostic Statistic Manual, is created by a bunch of psychiatrists who are, going off of research papers from the pharmaceutical companies, which are trying to figure out, they're trying to determine what is normal in society. And if you fall out of the normal range in society, you're determined to have a disorder. And the thing about it is, the great creator of the universe, the great architect of the universe, created us to stand out, not fit in.
Mm.
And so, the whole system has been set up, with the educational system, the healthcare system, the political system, to try to get people to fit in.
Right.
And in all reality is actually when we're truly in touch and in tune with, our higher selves, we stand out because we are unique, a vibration, unique reflection of Creator. And so every single saint who's ever walked this planet, such as Jesus, such as, Mother Teresa, such as Gandhi, such as St. John of the Cross, such as, so many, Buddha,
Yeah.
they could have been labeled as psychotic and put into, and schizophrenia. Jesus said, "I'm the Son of God." And, if there's many people in the psychiatric hospital who are saying the same thing, but they're just not, they don't have a framework for it. They don't know how to ground this energy in. They don't know how to live in society whilst in this world, but not of this world.
Right. That's the passage I was going to bring up.
Yeah. But so, it's very interesting that you bring that up. And so, so this whole kind of mental health system, in regards to the psychiatrist's Bible, is people are starting to realize and understand, that Bible was created to help people fit in. And when in all reality, I was created to stand out.
Right. There is a paper I found, the role of psychiatric disorders in religious histories. I'll put a link to it in the show notes to this conversation. Awesome. It literally said, Abraham, father of Judaism, that he was schizophrenic based on just the diagnostics of the DSM. Paul, probably bipolar because he wrote a lot and kind of had these swings. Jesus, psychotic, and I forget who else was on there, but Moses, I believe they said, was probably bipolar, or showing those symptoms, which to me, from that paradigm, sure, that's true, but from more of like a spiritual paradigm, you realize, these guys are harnessing some sort of energy that it's flowing through them, and it's going to look strange from the outside, but
definitely
internally. So in your book, there was a passage I read about mania, and you brought in chakras, that you mentioned Kundalini earlier, and I know that's got to have an integral connection to a lot of these heightened spiritual states where someone is naked on the streets saying, "I'm Jesus," or whatever, because they've got this spiritual energy and understanding, but have no context or any way to ground it. Can you explain to me the mania aspect of the psychiatric condition, and from your perspective, what that actually is?
Sure. So, from my experience and practice, what I can kind of, first of all, that every body is unique. So every quote unquote manic experience is going to be unique to that individual. But mania occurs when there's been a lot of suppressed, repressed energy, which all of a sudden kind of shoots up to the crown and the crown chakra and in the mind, if you want to say. And so all of these repressed energies are starting to surface, and there's no grounding of this energy. So it's usually operating from an egoic perspective, but these energies start surfacing into the mind, and so the brain and the thought processes becomes racing thoughts, and so the brain waves are corresponding to these racing thoughts. And so the brainwaves are erratic and scattered, likely in beta brainwaves, which is sympathetic reaction. And so they're having all these racing thoughts, and all these grandiose thoughts, such as "I am Jesus," such as, all these things start surfacing. And, they're operating at a higher level chakra in the fact that a lot of these manic experiences, if you talk to people who've had these experiences, are some of the most highly spiritual experiences of their life.
Right.
And so the problem becomes, they're not, during the stage, for the body to fall asleep, the mind has to fall asleep. And so they can't sleep. And so when they can't sleep, the subconscious mind cannot clear itself of kind of, if you want to call it, the excess thoughts or the garbage, if you want to say. And so this process kind of perpetuates itself where the mind is erratic, they're having grandiose thoughts, racing thoughts. goal-oriented activities. And so all of these kind of repressed fears of not pursuing their dreams start to surface. They start feeling invincible. They start working on all of these projects. The problem is, like, these lower chakras, they're not able to ground this energy into the lower chakras. And so therefore, manifesting these projects and being able to relate to people in the physical, because we are on planet Earth.
Yeah.
And so this kind of process perpetuates itself. No sleep, no cleaning of the subconscious mind, racing thoughts. And if you look at it, we are not our thoughts. And 99% of all psychiatric conditions occur when people start identifying with their thoughts as if their thoughts are reality and true.
Yeah.
Often these thoughts are, from the ages of 0 to 7, we're programmed. Most of our subconscious mind is programmed. It's like a blank iPhone that starts downloading apps because we need love. And so from our parents, from our mom, we learn we get love when we go to church, when we do these things. And for that time period, it's beautiful and it serves us. From our father, we learn, I get love when I do, get 100 on my tests. And so we start downloading these apps and programs. And, in high school, we start learning when I am good at sports, I start getting love from my peers. And in college, when I'm, and so we download all these apps and the brain is running on all these apps. And so thoughts come and go, feelings come and go, experiences come and go. But who's the one who's always there? And that's our consciousness. That's our higher self. That's, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And so in these manic episodes, people start clamping down to their thoughts like their reality, when in all reality they're not. And so the mind will follow the breath, or the breath will follow the mind. And if you were to look at someone who's bipolar going through a manic episode, what you would notice about their breath is it's scattered, shallow, following the patterns of the brain waves. And so that's why they can't sleep, because in order to fall asleep, you need to fall into a calm, rhythmic breathing pattern, which will entrain your brain into alpha brain waves, slower, and then to theta brain waves, which is that half awake, half sleep state where the subconscious mind is open. So people with mania, all these repressed, suppressed dreams and emotions and hopes and stuff starts going in from the, all the way to the higher chakras, the crown chakra, and they're not able to ground this energy. They're not able to clean out the subconscious mind through sleep. And so this process perpetuates itself, sometimes lasting, 2, 3, 4 weeks. And in this state, they're in a reactionary state. So any type of person who wants to communicate with them, even if they love them, usually it's going to end up being an attack defend type of scenario. So their loved one says, you need to go to the hospital right away. Boom, they're going to react and attack. And so there's not good communication happening. And so this process perpetuates itself, and they can't function in society because they can't ground this energy. And so usually, sometimes it ends up at the psychiatric hospital where they're forced to take psychiatric meds to calm themselves down. Or, usually what will happen is they'll burn all their energy and they'll have a deep depressive crash. And a lot of times, a lot of damage will happen where they'll say things and do things which can hurt, relationships and things. But what I'll say is these manic episodes are very highly spiritual experiences for most people, and people with bipolar are usually very highly sensitive and empathic individuals. And eventually what they'll find is this empathy, this sensitivity is a gift.
Well, I had always heard, I think everyone in their life knows someone who deals with bipolar disorder. I had always heard that it was for life, something you'd just be dealing with forever, and you'd be on medication forever. And then I read a book by Sean Blackwell. It's called Bipolar or Waking Up. And he relays an experience of a manic episode, probably full-on psychosis, where things in his mind, he was relating things to meaning that wasn't there for most people, and he ended up in a hospital. And then he had a couple of clues on his path to healing, where some person that kind of had a shamanic worldview came and was kind of impressed by him and was like, wow, what a blessing. He's like, well, I haven't been hearing that. And then did research and found Stan Grof and things.
Yeah.
I think that's
a great point.
Hopeful for people, right?
It's a great point. And what that shaman provided was it's not that what people experience in bipolar, in their manic episodes are false, because it's what they experience. It's true to them. But like, to be able to have someone reframe that belief into not without invalidating the experience, but reframing that experience into a way that makes sense, that is going to be able to be grounded into the third dimensional. And that's why integration is so important.
Integration of these states? Of
integration, every experience really. But even shamanic journeys with psychedelic plant medicines, the most important part, in my opinion, is integration, because we're going to have experiences which are highly charged and highly spiritual and highly conscious, and then the beauty of it becomes, okay, I learned in that journey we are all one. But to be able to ground that lesson into my cellular memory and activate that in my cellular memory, it's a lifetime's journey.
Right.
And so it's true with these highly charged manic experiences as well.
Now, have you gone, and you did relate in your book of going through an experience like that and learning the lessons that had to teach you. So it has to help you with working with others, and it sounds like you have a very intimate understanding of it. So I appreciate you being open about these sorts of things. I think most people just kind of hide it away, but like you said, it's a lesson.
Oh yeah,
and ultimately a gift. Just real quickly, since we are mentioning chakras, have you come up with a good definition of a chakra that might correlate with your Western medical training? Or is that...
Sure.
Please.
So each chakra, if you want to say, it's an energy center. However, what we realize and understand is each chakra kind of is almost like it has its own nervous system, its own brain, if you want to say.
Okay.
So, more and more people are starting to realize, the stomach or the third chakra, how intimately it's connected with the brain, the gut-brain connection.
Mm-hmm.
And what we realize is, like, even the stomach has its own nervous system. The whole third chakra has its own nervous. So it's like it's almost separate identity, but it has its own brain of its own. So it's an energy center. And, the neurons are really, the nervous system is how kind of the universe relays messages through that. It carries information. And so, each chakra is kind of like an energy center, which is with its own brain, with its own nervous system, and they're all connected. But at the end of the day, each one has a specific, unique function as well.
Yeah, I think Carl Jung said that each one correlated to a different... I know people don't like using the term levels, but he would say different levels of consciousness, and I think that's perfectly correlates. Correlates with Eastern understanding as well.
Definitely. And so when, Eastern philosophies, when they pump Kundalini energy at the base of the spine, it's been such kind of a mystery, this energy, for so long, that even spiritual masters wouldn't necessarily talk about it, because it's such a pure, mysterious energy. But Creator put, an ability for us to pump energy from the lower chakras. And a lot of these lower chakras are not necessarily bad. It's just, a lot of these kind of served us well. They're survival, mechanisms that we've had, but we can actually use this energy and pump this energy from the lower chakras now to the heart, and then also to the brain and to the third eye. And now Dr. Joe Dispenza is doing amazing scientific work, putting a language to what's happening when we do this. And so this pure energy, as it rises through the spine, it's literally purifying and sending this pure energy into every chakra, every nervous system, through the nervous system, and purifying it. Now we want our chakras to be open so that this energy can flow freely up the Sushumna, the central channel of the spine, the pranic tube, as well as the nadis and, the Ida and the Pingala, these two channels. And that's what the Caduceus is. It's showing the Kundalini energy rising and communicating with our DNA. But the beauty of this really happens when we're able to pump with pure intention and focus on our third eye. Now, when this energy hits the midbrain, it relays to the neocortex, and it can quiet the thinking mind. And, I said 99% of all kind of psychiatric issues or, the thinking mind identifying with that. Well, it can quiet that. And then the beauty happens when it hits the thalamus and it relates to the third eye, the pineal gland. And another, when it's at the pineal gland, when we can do these exercises, what we realize is it activates our third eye. And that's kind of our radio receiver for frequencies from the universe, and where time and space does not occur, where we can enter into the quantum field, where we can become one with all that is, where we can lose that ego identity, that idea of separation and self, and that fear drops away. Now, the beauty also is when we start doing this with, good intentions and, consistently, the third eye will start releasing, the pineal gland will start releasing chemical derivatives of melatonin. Now, melatonin is, I won't even go into what that can do, but like these derivatives, so our creator has created us with receptors, DMT receptors for a reason, with receptors for, all of the psychedelic plants, that they activate. We can obtain these states naturally. Yeah, we have these receptors. And so these derivatives of melatonin actually start, methylating and doing all these other things where we can actually get a DMT experience simply, without any external substance.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm going to have Dr. Rick Strassman on in a couple of weeks. So he says that there's healing with DMT, and he's actually come up with a way of administering DMT so people can stay in that state continuously.
Yes.
They're going to do experiments with that.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of it, because the more we practice these exercises, what happens, some spiritual perspectives call it the lower Eden, the upper Eden, because the invisible rules of the upper chakras, and, they operate on different, if you want to call it, laws of the universe based on and such as the lower chakras. And so these upper chakras are not based on survival or based on anything. It's based on unity consciousness.
Yeah.
It's based on abundance. It's based on, the ability to manifest just by thought alone. And so the more time we spend, telepathy, all these different, if some people call it like mysteries, like gifts of the spirit, but like it's really the capability of every single human, and it's really kind of where we're spending most of our time. And so the more time we spend, in these, they call the heart the center of the astral or whatever, but like, in the third eye and the quantum field, then the more these gifts start developing, and kind of the more we start operating from the laws of the, if you want to call it the upper Eden, upper heaven, or whatever you want to call it. And so, yeah, it's just a beautiful science that's coming to the forefront now.
Yeah, so this might be speculation, but if more people can center themselves in these higher chakras and learn to navigate the material world from that place, from the heart center or even higher, then maybe that's the beginning of heaven on earth. And that's what Eckhart Tolle was essentially saying in his book, New Earth. Like the more people that have these experiences and begin to wake up, you're going to see new businesses form that are more enlightened. You're going to see new ways of social policy and all that. And then suddenly everyone will be on a new experiencing a new level of reality, because everyone's continually creating that for everyone else. So that's possible.
I love that. I love that.
I like.
Yes.
I like.
Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within your heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%. And so that's exactly what Eckhart Tolle is talking about. We can only create from the consciousness level that we're at. And so as the more we start expanding our consciousness and spending time in those chakras, we're going to start creating from that place. And the heaven on earth is already happening in our hearts every single day. And, what type of kingdom are we creating in our heart? And, so it's beautiful, and it's happening, and it's already here for some people. So it's happening, and it's really, really exciting to be alive right now.
Yeah. So I want to transition this. I agree with all of that. I think it is an exciting time to be alive. I think a lot of people are feeling a lot of pain. But you said, that's the dark night of soul, and hopefully there's enough people around to lift them up. I would like to transition into psychedelics.
Sure.
And especially for people with a psychiatric history, or maybe it seems like people that have these types of experiences are almost pulled towards substances because they give them at least a temporary relief, but at the same time, they can also exacerbate the symptoms. So I'm curious from your perspective and your experiences, like when in someone's journey, and this isn't medical advice, this is just your own understanding, but when is it safe for someone to partake in psychedelics if they feel called to that sort of experience?
Sure. It's a great question. What I'll say is it's really a calling. These plant medicines have consciousness. And, the first time I was called to ayahuasca, it was very clear. It was a clear calling. I was at a stable place in my life. My energetic frequency was good. I was starting to meet people who were doing ayahuasca. I was evaluating for myself what type of people are they? Are they type of people that, I trust and that are vibrating a high, a good frequency, a loving frequency. And, I started reading about it for about, 4 or 5 months. And all of a sudden the doors just opened and I knew it was like an inner intuitive knowing, a calling almost. And so what I will say is these plant medicines have consciousness and they call you to a relationship. And so for every single body, it's different. But it's kind of like an inner knowing where you'll know, okay, this plant medicine is calling me. I've done my research. I've talked about it. I've prepared myself for it. What I will also say is on the flip side, there's been not a lot, but I've definitely met some cases where, people have been in psychiatric, they've been unstable.
Right.
And they go seek out these medicines and these medicines are they can only, how would I say, the energy you bring to the medicine is also very important because these medicines are like doctors. They can go through your system and diagnose you, and also they can only show you what you're ready to be shown. So it plays off your energy as well.
Interesting.
And so it's really important that we bring a good, pure intention. And we're at I want to say, a stable place in our lives where we feel the calling to increase our consciousness, because sometimes, I'll see, patients, beautiful souls in the psychiatric hospital who've taken LSD when they've been unstable.
Yeah.
And it's caused a psychiatric crisis because they've experienced all of these spiritual, if you want to say, conscious things, but they have no context of grounding it. They don't have a supportive community to integrate it. They don't have a mentor. And not only that, they're doing it in settings, which, there's a lot of different energy flying around, and it's difficult for these sensitive souls to see what's their energy, what's not their energy. And so to them, this experience is real. Well, I became God, but then they don't have that context of being able to ground it. They don't have the emotional stability. They don't have the communities to support them in the integration. So what I'll say is, I think it's a calling, and usually this calling occurs, through your intuition, and I would highly recommend kind of being at a stable place in your life and going into it with an open heart, yet a good intention and kind of a community to integrate. And all of those things are really important.
Thank you for that. That's going to help anyone listening to this. I know we do touch on the psychedelic waters sometimes in these conversations, and a lot of people will paint just the positive picture of it,
sure,
without any of the precautions or cautions. So that's why I wanted to get that from you. Definitely. Do you see in the future, I know there's MAPS, they're doing research of using this stuff therapeutically and more of like a westernized setting with a therapist. Where do you see psychedelics going for the future of psychiatry? As a medicine or something that a doctor like you could prescribe?
Well, best case scenario is, the psychedelics definitely become a part of psychiatric practice. And it's going to really take intuitive healers. I don't like the word healer, but really intuitive doctors who understand the plant, who have worked with the plant, who understand the consciousness of the plant, who also understand the set and setting, how important that is. And then also are intuitively in touch with their patients or the souls. I like to call them souls, beautiful souls who are searching. And so what I see in the future is, MDMA being able to be used to open up the heart space and take away the fear associated with the trauma. And once you're there, to be able to guide that soul in a safe place where they can approach their trauma and combine, if you want to say, sometimes it'll just be a pure MDMA journey, but sometimes you can combine MDMA to open up the heart, to take away the fear, and then take the psilocybin at appropriate dosages in the appropriate set and setting to really go deep within the psyche, which can start connecting you with your higher self and showing you, kind of where that trauma comes from, and start associating different types of emotions such as forgiveness, compassion, and deep love with that trauma, and changing the emotional charge associated with that trauma. So, it's really limitless. Ibogaine is a very, very powerful plant from West Africa, but very gentle grandfather spirit, which a lot of studies are showing that can give people with heroin addiction a second chance at life without the cravings, without the withdrawals.
Right.
Not only that, it's really like all those programs on the iPhone of the mind that have been downloaded, it can show you where those programs come from. And not only that, sometimes it can even go in there and delete some of those programming, and you come out of the Ibogaine journey with a clear mind. And then you can start connecting with your heart, and the integration starts happening. Ayahuasca is a beautiful plant if done in the right set and setting, where it can deeply get you deep into your heart and shift your entire worldview in one sitting. And so, the options and the possibilities with these psychedelic medicines are limitless. But what I will say is the psychedelics are not the end goal or the end cure at all. It's not. It can be an important step in the process of evolving the consciousness. And it's a beautiful medicine because it can shift your entire worldview in one sitting. But then the real work becomes, after, when you work with these plant medicines, there'll come a time for me personally where I'll say, okay, that's enough. You learned enough. Now we understand and realize the breath. We can obtain all of these states. The neural networking of these journeys have been implanted into our mind. We can obtain all of these states simply through the breath, and Kundalini and all these other beautiful natural ways. So I think it's a beautiful, kind of like the last scene of Avatar, where all of these plant medicines and animals and nature is coming to the aid of humanity, saying, right. Listen, we want to help you. Yeah. The Mother Ayahuasca is coming to the forefront. Psilocybin is coming to the forefront. MDMA, LSD can be useful in certain settings. And so all Ibogaine and all of these beautiful medicines are coming to the forefront, say we want to help. And, one that often gets overlooked is, Santa Maria, Mother Mary, marijuana. Right. All this plant wants to do is help humanity. From the hemp part of it, from the CBD part of it, even to the THC part of it. And so, the future with psychedelic plant medicines is bright. These are important, pieces that Mother Nature is offering. And, I can envision how each plant, depending on each patient, can contribute to that process of the evolution of consciousness.
Yeah, I think we're beginning to see it. I think it happened in the 60s, but it was immature, and it was almost like a cultural mania to a degree, and it just got shut down. But I think it's going to be a little more mature this time around.
I like that word. That word, mature. I like that.
Tell me so say someone has this experience, it might shift. They might become aware of some program in their mind that they've been running on that hasn't been good for them. They might see the world in a new way that makes them want to contribute in a heartfelt way to society.
Yeah.
Or it might just turn them into a pile of goo. How does one begin to integrate something like that?
That's a great question. So once we have a light and consciousness which sheds light on a program that we're running in our mind, it's important to be able to integrate that into our cellular structure. And so the mind learns through repetition. And so you can't think something without speaking something, or you can't speak something without thinking something. So the power of the word is tremendous. If you want to kind of like from a spiritual analogy, just an analogy, think about your mental attitude as God the Father and your words as God, the Son, the Son. And so the quickest way to God the Father is through the Son. And so by speaking your truth, sometimes simply by speaking your truth, we are all one. We are all one. God is love. God is good. God is kind. I love my life. These incantations and these declarations actually can release in our body, chemicals that mimic MDMA.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so it's the power of the word, power of speaking, because when we speak these words, there's an emotional vibration and frequency, which every single cell in our body is vibrating to the frequency of that word. And it's literally sending signals to the cells, the microtubules of the cells.
Just real quick, I actually read a report of they were doing brain scans on nuns when they were doing the Jesus prayer, and their brains mimicked the exact same neuroactivity as patients on psilocybin mushrooms. So
I believe that.
Definitely something to that.
100,000%.
Yeah,
yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And there's beautiful work being done in this area where, I don't know if the science is there yet, but I know that there's groups forming, and there's a group of 12 people who form, and they say, listen, what we want to emphasize in this group is vulnerability, impartiality, non-judgment, empathy, and curious wonder. They call it the view modality. And so a group of 12 people meet together, and their common intention is, can 12 people learn how to unconditionally love each other?
Yeah.
And so they'll do all kinds of exercises such as eye gazing, and all types of stuff, and simply just start asking questions, connecting the soul and having soul-to-soul communication. And, there's been people who've been brought up in certain families where certain parts of their souls or certain parts of their personalities were not accepted. In fact, it wasn't even spoken about.
Right.
And so there's moments where someone will, through the vulnerability, mention and bring forth a part of their psyche which they have not ever talked about. And, the complete stranger says, well, I see that part of your personality. I see that part of your psyche. I'm not here to change it. I accept it. I love it. I forgive it. And I want to know more. And the moment that the other person says this, when their souls are connected, there was a release that occurs within that person of a chemical substance, substrates, which would be very interesting to measure what they are, which mimics the release of MDMA.
Yeah, interesting.
So the truth will set you free. And so when we start speaking our truth, the mind learns through repetition. So when we learn through ayahuasca journey, we are all one. Then we start incorporating that into the physical by writing it down. Because when we write something down, we're bringing it into the physical. When we speak it, our cells are vibrating to it, and we keep repeating it. And another beautiful modality to integrate that is programming the subconscious mind. So right before you fall asleep, that half awake, half sleep state of the theta brainwaves, where the breath slows down and the brain goes into theta brainwaves, that's when positive affirmations can register into the subconscious mind. So, being able to play kind of like, if you want to say, a recording of all of the affirmations to be true that you experience. We are all one. We are all connected. God is love. God is good. I love my life. I am made in the image and likeness of God. As we start listening to these programs, words, while we're falling asleep in theta brainwaves, they'll start registering into our subconscious mind. And, during the day, 95% of the time, by the age we're 35, we're operating on subconscious mind programming. And so little by little,
that's that app, like you said earlier, the apps that we download into our brain as kids. If we do We Are One, these types of positive affirmations while we're in theta brainwave state, it's almost like we're downloading those apps back into our mind.
Yes. Yes. And Dr. Bruce Lipton is kind of like the father. I mean, I would say like a really amazing resource when it comes to reprogramming your subconscious mind. Just a simple YouTube search or going to his website. He has a lot of beautiful wealth of information about that.
Yeah, I'll put some links in the show notes for this podcast.
Awesome.
Okay, tell me what we're coming up on our time. Tell me what you're offering, what your service is to the world, and where people can find you and all of that.
Sure. Well, what I'm really offering to the world is my heart and my soul, and my vision really is a new earth where people realize and understand they are not their diagnosis, they are not their label, they are not their depression, they are not their there's so much more, and it's so exciting once we get to the heart and root of it, what people really are. And so what I'm really offering is just my truth. They can find more of the work that I do at my website, www.thespiritualpsychiatrist.com. I've written a free book called The Spiritual Guide to Mental Health, where I speak about a lot of my beliefs and offer practical tools that treat the root cause of depression, anxiety, ADHD, and all these other conditions, Alzheimer's, dementia. And so I give kind of a spiritual, energetic, conscious paradigm of mental health conditions, as well as kind of sharing my story, and at the end, really giving practical tools that can help people, hopefully. In the book also is a 21-day program to kick depression, which is based on breath work and a few minor changes in your life. I'm also offering a rapid self-realization program on my website there. And really what that is it's pumping Kundalini energy while chanting ancient mantras. I created music. And a lot of people might, I don't know, it's my music, so it's different. So I don't know if people will resonate with that music, but it's really just a 5 mantras, an hour practice in the morning of pumping Kundalini, chanting mantras, getting into a pure intention state, and pumping the energy from the lower chakras to the higher chakras. And if you do that consistently for an hour, each morning for a month, I'm almost positive there'll be a shift in consciousness, which can really help. And so, and also I'm working on a lot of music. And I think more than anything else, what I'm offering the world is for me personally, everything comes down to my connecting with my higher self and really trying to integrate my higher self into my physical body. So every single morning being consistent with my practices. I've been studying a lot the life of Jesus.
Right.
And just really studying who he was without any of the religious rules, without any of that, and then really meditating on the life of Jesus. And Jesus, to me, is one of my master teachers, and he, his love, the love that he had for humanity, the love that he had for each and every person, was love is the most powerful medicine in the world. It's what connects us together, and it's what heals us. And so Jesus, all he was about was healing, teaching, and praying, and really helping people and healing the sick. And so I think we're coming to a day and age where we can actually start laying our hands on people, praying for them, transferring love to them. And it's not really up to us whether the healing occurs. We can ask for it, but we're also entering this exciting stage where Jesus said, "You will do greater things than me." And either he was lying or he was telling the truth. And so, really trying to help people not only get past the label of a diagnosis, but once they're past that label, really start helping people self-realize who they are, made in the image and likeness of God, a unique reflection of source, and then really tapping into kind of ancient technology, which can help activating the DNA for cellular ascension. When we consistently start sending these high vibration frequencies, which Dr. Joe Dispenza's, really created a beautiful system of doing, we start ascending and we start coming into that new earth and new Jerusalem. Eckhart Tolle calls it New Earth. Jesus called it the New Jerusalem. Bob Marley called it Zion. And so we're in that stage where that can happen. And so really my goal is not only to help people present a new global paradigm of mental health based on consciousness. I'm really passionate about this, a really global paradigm, changing the global paradigm of mental health, but then also helping awaken masters, awaken, the full potential of the human sacred being.
Beautiful, man. I think your path is beautiful. I think other people are waking up to a similar path, and that's going to give it the momentum it needs to build Zion, New Jerusalem.
Definitely, brother.
The new earth.
Thank you for your work. I also want to say I just started an NPO nonprofit organization to make this vision into reality. And if people are called to donate, I think that I don't know if there's a link on my website yet, but at the end of my book, there's a link. And obviously, we don't want anyone, only from the heart, but really all of these proceeds are going to go towards building healing centers around the world. That's my ultimate goal, is to bring rapid self-realization centers around the world where people can fly in, obviously, take care of the physical, get them off of the psychiatric meds. But then once they're off, really start, utilizing these ancient modalities, plant medicines and whatever is necessary for that person to achieve, and be equipped with the tools and the confidence to go out there and start also activating and, helping raise global consciousness. So these healing centers are a vision of mine. I don't know how long it's going to take, but all I know is the universe is in control. And I have faith that, they're going to happen, and it's going to help a lot of people.
When the intention is right, you get a lot of support from the universal energies because they want to see that happen too. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you, and I think what you're doing is saintly, and we need more of that in the world. And we do that by example, right?
It's a joy, my brother. Thank you, Brother Nathan, for this podcast. Thank you to all. So much gratitude for putting the truth out there. I think we're ready for it. So thank you. I just want to encourage you, man, to keep doing this work. This is great.
All right, thank you so much. You enjoy the rest
of your
day.
Have a beautiful day.
You too. Bye.
Thank you all for listening. If you like this show, please do me a favor and rate this podcast on iTunes. Give a like, leave a review, and follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube by searching the Humboldt Lighthouse. If you feel called to reach out, I always love hearing from you. My contact information can be found at the website, thehumboldtlighthouse.com. Thank you for listening, and many blessings to you on your journey.